In January 1971, the Perron family moved into a 14-room farmhouse in Harrisville, Rhode Island, where Carolyn, Roger, and their 5 daughters, Andrea, Nancy, Christine, Cindy, and April, began to notice strange things happening almost immediately after they moved in. Carolyn would notice that the broom went missing or seemed to move from place to place on its own. She would hear the sound of something scraping against the kettle in the kitchen when no one was in there. She'd find small piles of dirt in the center of a newly cleaned kitchen floor. The girls began to notice spirits around the house. For the most part, they were harmless. There were a few, however, that were angry. Carolyn allegedly researched the history of the home and discovered that it had been 8 generations of one extended family lived and died in that house prior to their arrival. Andrea Perron adding, "Some of them never left." The Black Book of Burrillville, which is the town's former public records book, reveals that, over the course of its existence, the property had been host to 2 suicides by hanging, 1 suicide by poison, the rape and murder of 11-year-old Prudence Arnold by a farmhand, and the passing of 4 men who froze to death, in addition to other tragic losses of life. Andrea Perron, the oldest of the 5 girls, said, "Whoever the spirit was, she perceived herself to be mistress of the house, and she resented the competition my mother posed for that position." The spirit that was depicted in the film, Bathsheba, was the worst of them all. It turns out there was actually a real person named Bathsheba Sherman who lived on the Perron's property in the mid-1800s. She was rumored to have been a Satanist, and there was evidence that she had been involved in the death of a neighbor's child, though not any trial took place. In researching the Conjuring true story, we discovered that the suspected witch Bathsheba Sherman died as an old woman in May 1885, roughly 4 years after her husband Judson Sherman's death in 1881. She was buried in a nearby Baptist cemetery in downtown Harrisville. Bathsheba lived to see her son Herbert, a farmer like his father, marrying his fiancée Anna in 1881. Was Bathsheba Sherman really a witch? There is no hard evidence to support that Bathsheba Sherman was really a witch. Only legend and local folklore. Having lived on a neighboring farm in the 1800s, suspicion grew when an infant mysteriously died in her care. When the baby was examined, it was determined that the mortal wound was caused by a large sewing needle that had been impaled at the base of the child's skull. Though the townspeople believed that Bathsheba sacrificed the infant as an offering to the devil. Due to insufficient evidence, a court found that she was innocent of any wrongdoing. Despite her name being cleared legally, the public was not convinced. The only photograph that has surfaced that could possibly include suspected witch Bathsheba Sherman is this picture. It is a photograph of the Perron family farmhouse circa 1885, when it was then the Arnold estate. The real Bathsheba, who lived next door on Sherman Farm, would have been in her early 70s at the time, if not already dead, since she passed away in the spring of 1885. Various articles online will have you believe that her body literally turned to stone when she died, or that Bathsheba died from a bizarre form of paralysis that puzzled and frightened doctors. Their basis is never more than legend and local folklore, or internet rumors. And these same articles often state that Bathsheba had 4 children, all of whom died before reaching the age of 4. However, U.S. government census records contradict this, since we know that Bathsheba had a son, Herbert L. Sherman, who lived a long life as a farmer and had a family of his own. As for her 3 other children, we could only find an unofficial record of their existence on a public internet family tree that lists their names as Julia, born in 1845, Edward, born in 1847, and George, born in 1853. It is possible that they died before the next census was conducted. In her book, Andrea Perron addresses the members of the Arnold family who died on the farm, where she states, "Most of the recorded deaths which occurred on the farm were in that family: Mrs. John Arnold, Harmony, Johnny and Prudence, even Bathsheba was an Arnold." However, with regard to the rape and murder of 11-year-old Prudence S. Arnold, her official death record indicates that she died in the town of Uxbridge, Massachusetts, not Burrillville, Rhode Island, revealing that her place of death was likely not on the farm. Furthermore, the record lists her cause of death as, her throat was cut by WEK. These initials contradict the name Andrea gives in her book, Bill Norton. The first initial, W, could possibly stand for William, which can be shortened to Bill. However, this still doesn't explain the last name being incorrect. Andrea cites her source as being the Black Book of Burrillville, which was compiled by a man named John Smith with additional entries by J.C. Mathewson. The parents believe that it was Bathsheba's spirit that was tormenting them. According to Andrea, the family experienced other spirits as well that smelled like rotting flesh and would cause beds to rise off the floor.
Smell like rotting meat.
She claims her father would enter the basement and feel a cold, stinking presence behind him. They often stayed away from the dirt-floored cellar, but the heating equipment would often fail mysteriously, causing Roger to venture down. At that point the family desperately contacted the Warrens for help. Okay, let's have a quick brief about the Warrens. Edward Warren Miney and Lorraine Rita Warren were American paranormal investigators and authors associated with prominent cases of alleged hauntings. Edward was a self-taught and self-professed demonologist, author, and lecturer. Now let's get back to our story. In October 1973, the Warrens began to investigate the alleged haunting of Roger and Carolyn Perron and their 5 daughters. Over the 10 years that the family lived in the house, the Warrens made multiple trips to investigate. At one point, Lorraine conducted a séance to attempt to contact the spirits that were possessing the During the séance, Carolyn Perron became possessed, speaking in tongues and rising from the ground in her chair. Andrea claims to have secretly witnessed the séance. Andrea said, "I thought I was going to pass out. My mother began to speak a language not of this world in a voice not her own. Her chair levitated and she was thrown across the room." How did the Perron family figure out that the spirit haunting them was that of Bathsheba Sherman? The family's connection to the spirit of Bathsheba Sherman came at the suggestion of paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. The mother, Carolyn Perron, told Ed and Lorraine about an incident that had happened a few years earlier. She said that she had been lying on the sofa and all of a sudden felt a piercing type of pain in her calf and then the muscle began to spasm. She noticed a puddle of blood at the point of impact. She checked for bees or anything else that could have caused the puncture in her leg but found nothing. In her daughter's book, Andrea Perron describes the wound as a perfectly concentric circle, as if a large sewing needle had impaled her skin. When Carolyn told Ed and Lorraine Warren the story in conjunction with the tale of Bathsheba Sherman, Lorraine suggested that Bathsheba Sherman could have taken the needle with her to the afterlife and used it to stab Carolyn. Though the movie version of events culminates with Ed performing an exorcism rather than a séance, Lorraine insists that she and her husband would never attempt one, as they must be performed by Catholic priests. After the séance, Roger kicked the Warrens out. Worried about his wife's mental stability, the family continued to live in the house due to financial instability until they were able to move in 1980, at which point. Have any other homeowners who've lived in the Perron family home had paranormal experiences? Well, daughter Andrea Perron, author of House of Darkness, House of Light, addressed this question in an interview. Everyone who has lived in the house that we know of has experienced this. Some have left screaming and running for their lives. The man who moved in to begin the restoration on the house when we sold it left screaming without his car, without his tools, without his clothing. He never went back to the house and consequently the people who owned it. The adjacent landowners never moved in and it sat vacant for years. 6 years after the Perron family was terrorized by their demon, another family in Enfield, England began to experience similar things. And that's what will be our next true story. Hope you've enjoyed this video. If that's what happened, smash the like button, and subscribe to the channel for more true stories.